Hello and welcome to The Talk. Today we'll be talking about broadcasting in Nigeria, and we have the person who knows all about it. On this program, we talk about issues and we bring to you the people who know about all these issues. And so today we'll be talking to the Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission, Engr Yomi Bolarinwa. Welcome to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
Now, some of the things we'll be talking today are the migration to digital broadcasting come 2015. We'll also be talking about how the NBC is regulating broadcasting in Nigeria. These and lots more. We'll talk about anything that has to do with broadcasting in Nigeria we'll be talking about. But before we go into all of that, it is only good that we know who Engr Yomi Bolarinwa is. Well, I know, apart from the fact that he is the Director General of NBC, I know he used to work in NTA, but that's all I know. Where he even worked, which NTA station he worked, when he left NTA, when he joined NTA, and what he did maybe before then or even after then, before going to the NBC, I do not know. So, sir, can you just humor us and tell us who Engr Yomi Bolarinwa is?
I'm a broadcast engineer, and I started my broadcasting career with the then WNTV WNBS in 1975, July to be precise. Thereafter, I had a sponsorship to the University of Ife to do a degree course in electrical electronics. I came back and I was posted to NTA Abeokuta, and where I rose from engineer engineer 2 then, to the chief engineer. And I then left the NTA for National Broadcasting Commission in 1994 as an assistant director. And down the road, here I am today.
That's good. So now we know that NTA is where you started work, from NTA, Abeokuta all the while.
Yes, WNTV, WNBS in Ibadan. When it became NTA in 1976, I came back from the university. I was transferred to NTA Abeokuta. And between 1981 and 1994, I was in NTA Abeokuta. And I left as the chief engineer of NTA Abeokuta.
And here we are today. You're the Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission. That's good, sir. And welcome once again to our studio. Now, when I said migration earlier, you said, no, it's not migration. So, what is it exactly?
Well, it's actually transition. It's a permanent thing. When we move away from analog transmission of radio and TV signal, we're not going to go back. So it's a permanent shift. Now, when you talk about migration by the Oxford Advanced Learner Dictionary, is a seasonal movement, but this is a permanent movement. So we're talking about transition from analog to digital. And this process started, Nigeria actually have been in the process in the last 2 years. In the last 2 years, NTA Star Times combination have been doing digital terrestrial transmission.
Okay,
and that
we'll come to that later. But now I want us to start by understanding. Now, come June 17, 2015, I think that is the date set for the switchover. Yeah, the switchover. Come that date, what are we going to see that is different from television as we're seeing it today?
Well, actually, if we get it right,
Yes.
you're not likely to notice anything different.
Okay.
Because within the period between now and then, there will be what we call simulcast, or some people say dual illumination. That will be if you can receive analog signal, say for example NTA,
Yeah.
and then also receive digital signal of NTA if you have the set-top box. Now, what would then happen on June 17 will be we switch off totally. You will not be able to receive analog signals again. The main mode of transmission then will be the digital signal. Now, if all along you've been part of the simulcast, and we hope that if we get it right, every Nigeria will be part of the simulcast. So when we switch off, you'll barely know the difference, because then, except you make an attempt to receive an analog signal, you won't know the changeover.
Okay. Now, you say you hope every Nigerian will be a part of the simulcast.
Yes.
Now, how do you expect every Nigerian to be? Now, for the ordinary Nigerian who just has a TV at home who is watching, how do you expect that kind of person to be a part of this? Because the whole essence of this is, for people to understand. People ask us a lot of questions, and, some say, so what is wrong with the TV set that I have now? What is the thing, you're changing this? So they just need to understand. How can they be a part of that simulcast now?
The first thing is that nobody that has a television have to throw it away.
Okay.
The television set will still function. It's an analog device, but all you need is an added device that we call set-top box. In some layman's language, they say it's decoder. But all it does is convert the digital signal into analog so that it can interface with your analog television. So nobody will have to throw away his television, because once you have the set-top box, you will be able to receive digital signal on your analog television. How will we have everybody? What the federal government of Nigeria has done is to set up a a committee that will drive the transition. And when they're ready, and hopefully before the end of this month, they will be ready with a program. And there will be publicity, sensitization of the public, nook and crannies of this country, in every language available in this country, to ensure that the average Nigerian citizen do understand what digitization means, do understand what they have to do. The key ingredient here is the set-top box. And we're federal government are putting in position a means of getting people to manufacture this particular equipment in Nigeria. Okay. Not only manufacture it, ensure that it's at a cost that is affordable for the average Nigerian.
Are we saying it's going to be subsidized somehow?
No, not subsidy in the sense that we are used to, but everything to make it cheap will be made available to the manufacturer. Okay. Every protection will be given to the manufacturer. For example, people talk about high cost of manufactured product in this country. Yeah. So government is going to put in place, when it comes to import duties, government is going to do something about it. When it comes to tax, government is going to do something in this. Custom will ensure that products, similar products, do not find their way into the country. Okay. And so it's going to be, one, it has an easy means, it has the infrastructure which will be provided to make the manufacturing easy and relatively at a cheap cost. And because the boundaries, so in quote, will be close to similar products, then we're sure we're going to get the right quality, the right standard, and we are going to have it at a relative cost that is cheaper for the people. Okay. And if you'll see what is going on today, when NTA start time, I know you don't want to go into that direction, but that's the best example we have today, because we are doing the digital transmission via the NTA start time as carrier for virtually all the for all the off-air for all the off-the-air transmission we have, all the licensed terrestrial stations. So today, the price of the set-top box keeps on dropping and dropping and dropping. And we're sure that by the time we have a manufacturer mass producing this in this country, it will be relatively cheap. And we know that with sensitization, we're going to get people to buy into this, and more people will get as we move from those economically viable cities, in quote, like today you have digital transmission in about 15 cities. You have in Lagos, you have in Abuja, you have in Port Harcourt, you have in Ibadan, you have in Enugu, you have in Kano, you have in Ilorin, you have in Kaduna. So as we move from city to city, we will get to those local areas. And the intention is that every home that has a television today and receive analog signal come June 17, 2015, will also be receiving a digital signal.
Okay, so that's the way it's going to work. Everybody who owns a TV set now, come June 17, 2015, it goes digital. If you refuse to buy a set-top box,
the reception, it's not the TV set that's go digital. The reception, the signal they get will be a digital signal.
So if you refuse to buy the set-top box, you're on your own.
No, because it is our responsibility to ensure that they receive signal. We will ensure that the set-top box come at a price that is affordable for them. So definitely they will have a set-top box, and they will be able to receive digital signal.
Okay. Now, let's now go back a little. Let's rewind. Now, why did the ITU, which is the body behind, this, why the decision that, everybody should go digital?
Well, if we look at the engineering way of doing things, the best mode of sending a signal is digital mode. If you look at the telegraphy of yore, it's dash and dots. That's coded signal. Now, transmission of electromagnetic waves, which radio and television signal forms part of the usable part of that spectrum, is dependent on frequency availability. For example, in Lagos today, you cannot find space to assign for a new radio station or a new television station in the analog domain.
Okay.
But with digitization, which is compression, you compress the signal. And so the space it takes is reduced. So NTA is transmitting on UHF, this program, and in some cases on VHF. And each bandwidth, each space this program will take, if it's on UHF, is 8 megahertz. Now, if I compress this signal, I can put a similar signal like this. I can put 10 of them or 15 of them together to occupy the same 8 megahertz.
Okay.
So the key thing for digitization is the technology. Technology has come with a better way of using the 8 megahertz. And so they are now applying, and this started some 41 years ago. Last year was exactly 40 years. Digitization process was first mentioned in the ITU, and people worked on it, and it became a reality. So today, you can then take 8 megahertz or 7 megahertz that used to contain one so-called one channel. And then you now have similar program, about 8, 10, under standard definition. If you go to higher definition, you have lesser program. It also is a factor of the quality of program you want. If you're doing sporting program, you have so much activities, so much running around, so you have lesser number that you can put together. But all said and done, you have large number, you have space that you can now use. So much more that in 2007 and 2012, the ITU has also agreed that the upper band of the UHF, channel 61 to 68, which translates in terms of frequency to 790 megahertz to 862 megahertz, have been ceded to mobile.
Okay.
So today, listeners, today, viewers want content wherever they are, whatever time they can afford to watch it. So mobility has become a trend, a major trend in content delivery. So they have assigned that portion. So as we go digital, you will find that that channel on the television no longer usable because it has been seeded. And again, when you have a set-top box and you tune to the output of your set-top box, as you change channel, you're changing the channel on your set-top box, no longer on your television. So you have a large number of channels available for you to do several things. You can have channel on which you can receive radio. So digitization had made convergence possible, convergence in the terms of audio, video, and data. Some people call it triple play. So when you have broadband, it then means you can make phone call, and I'm sure you know about Skype and stuff, and then you can watch television, you can listen to radio, and you can also work with the internet, all on the same device. Because today you also have some television sets that have hybrid tuners. You don't need set-top box. But they are smart TV, and they are TV everywhere. So you can also do internet, you can also make your phone calls. Because digitization, the basic language for all, has become a digital, and that and signals are now converted into packets or data and then transmitted. So you get all the signal at the same time. So you just pick which one you want.
Okay, now talking about convergence, which you just mentioned now. Now, I was talking to somebody today, and they wanted me to ask you this question. Now, in Nigeria, there's some telecom companies now who are also offering, content on their mobile TVs. Now, he's now asking, now, I know they are licensed by NCC, but when it comes to content, watching programs on the mobile, these are telecom companies. Now, is it NCC that licenses them, or should it be NBC? What is going on?
Well, the laws is very clear. If you're talking telecoms, you're licensed by NCC. If you're talking content, radio and TV, broadcasting, the law is very clear. It's NBC. So if they put in television and radio content, they must be licensed by NBC. Otherwise, what they are doing is illegal.
Okay. So we hope...
and we have so informed those who advertise that they must be licensed by NBC. Otherwise, what they are doing is illegal.
Okay. Okay, we'll take a break now, and when we come back, I'll chat with Engineer Yomi Bolarinwa. We'll continue. Your weekend starts right here on this program.
Watch Your Weekend at these times on NTAE.
It's still the talk with the Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission, Engineer Yomi Bolarinwa. Okay, sir. While you were talking before the break, you mentioned the DigiTeam set up by the federal government. Now, how is the DigiTeam working with the NBC?
Well, the NBC is the secretariat of the DigiTeam, and will provide them with resources. And logistics and whatever they need to succeed, we're there for them.
How do you see Nigeria doing presently as far as the transition is concerned?
Well, we're doing well. We're doing well. I said
what happened?
That there was
we were
not
supposed to have
publicity.
the 2012 dates that we had before.
Yes, we were supposed to. Then when the 2012 was suggested,
yes,
we thought by 2008 the digiting will have been established. One thing you must realize is that everywhere in the world, this is driven by legislation. Even in America, it was driven by the Congress because there's certain laws you need to put in place. Yeah. There's certain paradigm shift in the licensing by NBC and in broadcasting in Nigeria. For example, one key point in digitization is that broadcasters will have to concentrate on content, while a new body will be licensed as a carrier that will carry the signals. Now, before then...
No, sir, please just hold on. Can you explain that? Can you break that down for me?
Now,
yes,
what happens is that when you have a license,
yes,
you not only do your production, you do your transmission.
Yes.
Now, in the digital environment,
yes,
because of reasons I've given you earlier,
yes,
the savings in spectrum,
yes,
all over the world, it's a known fact that a single licensee cannot have 8, 10, 15 program lineup, except he's doing pay subscription and is aggregating content from other sources.
Yes.
But as an individual or a licensee, all it needs is a challenge for its signal. So you license somebody who aggregate content on his transmitter. It's called multiplex, brings them together into the system and transmits. So if you have that, you need the backing of legislation. And if you don't have it, you simply will run into trouble that some other people, some other countries have run into. So we need to wait patiently to have the go-ahead before we start. That is why 2012 was no longer visible. But let us go back to 2004. Now, in 2004 was the first time Africa heard about the issue of digitization, and that ITU would like to make or sign agreement on digitization. Now, Nigeria was not represented at that conference in 2004, but Nigeria attended the conference in 2006, meaning Nigeria became aware, or the Nigerian broadcast industry became aware of the issue of digitization in 2006. Now, between 2006 and today, what do we have? All pay subscription, all cable network in this country transmit digital signal. All the mobile licensees transmit digital signal. In the last 2 years, we have had digital terrestrial transmission, which is the last mile, because we are looking at the terrestrial stations, which are free to air. The cable stations, the satellite stations are not free. By subscription, you pay for it. But when you look at the terrestrial that is free to air, that is the last mile that affects close to 40 million viewing homes, not even viewers, viewing home in Nigeria. And every one of them, for this process, for this transition to succeed, must have what it takes to receive the digital signal. And that is why everywhere in the world, it is the transition of terrestrial station that it's talked about. And don't forget, whatever we transmit affects our neighbor. So essentially, the agreement is between our neighbors. You have Republic of Niger, you have Cameroon, and you have Republic of Benin as our neighbor. We have signed an agreement that we will not cause interference to their signal. So come June 17, whatever we do in our country will not interfere with the signal in their own country. And it's very critical for Nigeria, because when you look at countries like Republic of Benin,
Yes.
Togo, and Ghana,
Yeah.
you know that if you take a flight from Lagos going to Accra, and you take, at the same time, if it's possible, if it's different airport, a flight takes off coming to Abuja. The one going to Accra gets to Accra before the one coming to Abuja lands. So it tells you that if I put a transmitter in Lagos, and I'm not careful about certain parameters of that transmission, the signal will likely travel as far as Accra. So in our own case, not only do we look at our immediate neighbor, Republic of Benin, we look at Togo, we look at Accra, Ghana. And there have been instances, you will be surprised, that our FM signals has reached Gambia.
Wow.
So once we sign such an agreement, we must take it serious because it's an international agreement. So we must look at our neighboring towns, neighboring transmitting stations, and ensure that we keep to our agreement. Now, having done this, most of the viewers, in number of the viewing homes we're talking about, are centered around most of the state capitals. And so once we can get that done, then we'll look at the fallout from the remaining, and we'll fill those spaces. We will get by, and we are confident with the way we're currently going that we will, before June 17, 2015, be able to reach a situation that will say over 95% of the viewing homes today are not capable, are receiving digital signals.
Okay, that is good. And we look forward to that happening.
The problem is, because people receive this signal, those people who have this subscription at home don't even know that they are receiving digital signal on their analog TV. They don't even know because nobody had explained it to them. But the truth is, most people will receive signal because most of the terrestrial stations, people, because of clarity of the signal, receive them via the decoders today. So what are they doing? They're receiving digital signals. So if you take it from that perspective, you will discover that we are in good shape and we're going to make that date.
Now, one thing I also want to understand, now for stations now that are localized, now when you join maybe like StarTimes, for instance, now and its network, it's everywhere. Now, are their signals still going to remain localized?
Going to be localized.
Okay.
What you will discover is that broadcasting is a cultural medium, and certain programs that you find fit and proper for city centers like Abuja might not be acceptable in a place in the rural area. And so we must respect that. And there is something called localism in broadcasting. A station in my local area must talk about my local area. It's not enough for the station to start its news, a 40 or 45 minutes bulletin, and say everything about Abuja, Lagos, without a word about my village, where it is situated. That's localism. You must talk about it. You must talk about the local government and tell us about what they are doing. Essentially, you have to serve the interests of the people. So if you are in my local area, and all I get is about areas some people within my locality will never get to in their lifetime, it doesn't make sense. So they will still, by technology, be limited to their coverage area as given by the regulator.
Okay. Now, let's come back to the NBC as the police of broadcasting in Nigeria. Now, generally looking at the Nigerian landscape now, how would you say we're doing?
Well, let me correct an impression. Oftentimes, people call the NBC the police, and it's not police as such. One, the major instrument for regulation is the Nigerian Broadcasting Code. And that code is a joint effort of all stakeholders in the industry. Though the law is very clear that NBC should fashion a code, but from inception 21 years ago, NBC had always invited broadcasters
to be part of
it. And we collectively discuss every provision of that code. And the essence of the code is to promote broadcasting and protect independent broadcasting and to serve the interest of the Nigerian people. So from that basic point, we're not police, as in the Nigerian sense of it. Now, the industry has done well. If you look at 20 years ago, you hardly can hear the voice of Nigeria by Nigerians outside Nigeria. Today, you hear that voice loud and clear everywhere in the world. On the internet, we're strong. The broadcasters are strong. And if you go to Europe, you can watch news from Nigeria and listen to Nigerian radio stations all over. We're doing well. But we need to do much more. When it comes to political broadcast, there's a lot more that we can do. We join the public in the Okada mentality. And it's only one track. Everything that is wrong is traced to the doorstep of the government or the leadership. Now, broadcasting is not an abusive medium. It's a place for trading information. It's a place for canvassing superior argument. But when you see a situation that people come into the studio and all to do is to abuse people, when people are invited to discuss an issue, it leads to name calling. And then you have the professional anchor people sit down there and don't know what to do. Or they themselves, in the kind of questions they ask, lead
to
the invited guests into that direction. It's unprofessional.
So what does NBC do in situations like that? How have you been handling such?
What we do, it's recourse to the code. It is clear that you cannot incite. It is clear that you must handle program with maturity professionally. And once you don't do this, then we do what the code says we should do. We'll call your attention to it. We'll ask you a question. Why did you go in this direction? And once that is clearly stated, and we'll find out that you are just incompetent, then we will sanction you.
What kind of sanctions do you give?
Well, we give warning, and then when we give warning and you persist, we'll fine. And as of recent, we'll find 2 stations, 2 million. They invited guests into their station, and the kind of question, and when those guests descended into, you know that there are some languages that are not allowed.
Yeah.
And so when they go overboard,
and you don't,
and you can see that the professional seated in the studio is not doing the proper thing. It's not about what your guests say. Yeah. It's about your conduct as a professional. So NBC do not sanction stations because of what the guests say. It's about the conduct of that station. There must be gatekeeping in broadcasting. And that is the trademark, the hallmark of broadcasting. You have gatekeepers who ensure that the proper things are done professionally. So when you invite a guest, it's a guest in your house. Yeah. There is a house rule, and you will have to determine that. And there's a way you ask your question that are proper and enables you to get out of your guests salient points that will give information and education to your viewers and listeners. But when you leave that and you go overboard, then professionally it is not right. Yeah. And then your station pays for it and you pay for it. So we do not sanction stations based on what they allow people to say. We sanction stations based on professional conduct, which is very clear in the code.
Okay. Now, in terms of content on Nigerian television today, you know, how let me say, well, how happy are you with what you're saying?
Well, if you put it on how happy,
Yeah.
me as a person, you'll find
as a
out
person
that
and
I as
the
a person,
Director General of
I as a
NBC.
person,
Yes.
we always like to score 90. So if you ask me that as a person, I will say I'm not yet happy because we've not got to the 90% mark. For the National Broadcasting Commission, I will say, yes, we will feel a sense of fulfillment because today, if you enter Nigeria, between the hours of 7 and 10 p.m.,
yes,
any station you tune to on television, you're going to find Nigerian content.
okay.
10, 15 years ago, we were told that it's not possible to have local music. Today, through regulation by the NBC, 24/7, so much more that the Nigerian music and musicians are popular across the world because the station just must play local music. 15 years ago, people told us that on cable, on pay subscription, you cannot have Nigerian content. Today, Nigerian content are everywhere. There is no cable station that does not look for the local content to place on its bouquet. So if you take those instances, we're quite happy we're doing well. But then, children's program. We don't have children's program. And that we must address. We must educate our children. We must give them information. We must entertain them.
So why do you think that is lacking?
Well, again, maybe because of, some people say finance, but I think people don't apply themselves to it because they believe advertisers don't want to put money into it. But I believe if you do a good program, advertisers, there are advertisers that advertise children's needs who will want to put their money. And the children of today are the future of Nigeria. We must, if it's a cultural medium, we must teach them. They must know our culture. They must be able to speak our language. We must teach them our values. And we must have programs that address.
Now, let's go back now to digitization again. Now, you talked earlier about Ghana, our neighbors. And I was reading somewhere that come 2015, any country that does not change, then that consideration is no longer in place for countries if you do not change.
Well, I don't understand that they cannot, if they don't change.
That, you know, since it's a global thing, you must think that that's the last date that there will be any consideration, you know, for maybe your signals, you know, crossing into somebody else's body because
I think there
everybody
is a misconception here. I have clearly stated that we have an agreement with our neighbor.
Yes.
That, for example, come 2015, if we're transmitting analog, that analog signal must not interfere with their own digital signal, and vice versa.
Okay.
If for whatever reason, they still have pockets of analog transmission, that transmission cannot interfere with our signal. If it interferes with our signal, we have a right to complain.
Okay.
Now, if we have a digital signal and it's interfering with their own analog signal, they cannot complain, and vice versa. So it is very clear. It's, you know what international agreements are. You just have to respect what you have signed. And so we must ensure that no signal emanating from Nigeria is analog, crosses the boundary into a neighboring country. We just must ensure that. But much more than that, what the government in Nigeria has planned is that we will not even have any analog transmission after 2015.
Okay, you're watching The Talk with the Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission, Engineer Yomi Bolarinwa. We'll take a break and we'll be right back.
from cultural to contemporary. North to south. East to west. NTA Entertainment brings you the best in entertainment. NTA, your one-stop entertainment channel.
Your weekend starts right here on this program. Producer, Constant Gardner. Wellness is about feeling good. It's not just about trying to do everything.
Watch your weekend at these times on NTA.
You're welcome back to The Talk with Engineer Yomi Bolarinwa, the Director General of the National Broadcasting Commission. Mentioned as one of the advantages of having digital broadcasting, now that it's going to free more spectrum and all. Now, let's say take the case of Nigeria now. For some of the spectrum that will be freed, what happens to them? What do we do with them?
Well, one ITU has said they should be assigned to mobile services. But definitely there are new innovations in broadcasting that will need services. Some of them will be used for security. When you have disasters, some of them will be used. For example, there's something called emergency broadcast, that when you have emergency, you must have a rallying point where broadcast is made to everybody. And so you need to make use of it. And I've also explained to you what mobility means. Today, you know, everybody carries an iPad, everybody carries a smartphone, and everybody wants to check what is happening in the world on that phone. Device. So wherever people are, they want to watch the content they want to watch in that location. So once you have triple play, some people call it broadband. Once you have broadband, you have ability to do triple play, and then you can have your content. The advantage for broadcasters is we have multi-platforms for our content. Some few years back, you just have your terrestrial station, and that is the only place people can see it.
Yeah.
Today, you are available on internet. Today, you are available on satellite, which means a global coverage. And then you have handheld devices, which means somebody in his car can say, I want to watch the NTA network news, and it's in a traffic situation. He doesn't have to get home. He can sit in the comfort of his car and listen to the news. And so these are some of the things it will be used for. Essentially, again, mostly all over the world, not to the benefit of broadcasters, because they believe, and from time immemorial, it is known that television is what they call elephant in the house of spectrum. You know, you have grass and you bring elephant, you know how big it is, it will eat, and other people will go hungry. So it's known as elephant in the house when you talk about spectrum. But with digitization, they find a way of reducing the part of the spectrum television is taking. But when you look at it and the innovations, you have, once you transmit high definition, you're taking a larger chunk of the spectrum. If you're doing 3D, three-dimensional television, and let me let you know, apart from high definition, you have extra high definition that has been transmitted in Japan by NHK, and the last Olympic, a little bit of it was done by Japan in extra high definition. That takes a higher bandwidth than high definition. So there will be new developments, and all is to have better resolution, to have clear picture that you see it's like you want to touch. You find they play a shot, a football, and you think the ball is coming for you. And you see what has happened to sound. That when you hear some sound, like a gunshot, you want to run out of your room. So clarity, a better definition, because you can then, because of digitization, you can maneuver. I don't know whether you have seen this Photoshop, when you take a picture of somebody and you upload it into Photoshop and you touch it. That's digital for you. That it makes it possible for you to do whatever you want to do. You can, at the early beginning of television, we used to slice tape. You cut tape and you cut films and join them together. But today you don't have to do that. You can just line by line remove and add whatever you want. And that digitization has brought. That is the major advantage for us in broadcasting. Because you can take this program and lay about 3 or 4 languages line onto it. So that simultaneously they're watching the same content, but they're listening on different languages. That, again, it's what digitization has brought.
Okay. Now, we've seen the benefits, the advantages, you know, the clarity of pictures and all of that, you know, sound that it has brought. But what do you see as the challenges for us with digitization?
For broadcasters, the major challenge is that we need to put on our thinking cap and be more creative. Now, if we get our viewers to spend extra money to buy a set-top box, and we're still giving them the same stuff they are used to in analog, it doesn't make sense, and they're going to revolt. They're going to talk about it. In Britain, when the first pilot episode was done, one of the criticisms is that there is no difference in content. And we must produce content because now we have opportunity to specialize. When you watch National Geographic, when you watch Discovery, those are specialized stations. And there's nothing. If you take food in Nigeria, if you take maize and go around Nigeria, you can, for a whole year, you're still on what maize is used for in different areas. So we need to be more creative. And of course, it's opportunity for people who are creative to produce programs because there are avenues to show those programs. Now, it also gives us lesser opportunity for mistakes. How? If you take an high-definition camera and you handle it the way you handle a standard definition camera, it shows clearly. If your makeup artist comes and doesn't do a proper job, it shows on high definition clearly. If your lighting is poor, it shows clearly. So margin of error has become reduced. We must become more professional in what we do. And because today the advantage is that everything we're talking about, you can do it tapeless. As we're having this discussion, it can be listened to, it can be viewed anywhere in the world with a click of a button. So if you put that, so you must, and take all over the world, what is happening today, some people are sleeping. Some people are just waking up. So your margin of error, whatever we're doing there, if you're going to go into those places, you must take into consideration the timing too. So we need to be more creative and we need to be professional. Training, we need to train and retrain. Somebody said the illiterates of the 21st century are those who are not willing to learn and unlearn. So we must learn the new ways of handling digital and train and retrain and retrain. It's not enough to buy the hardware. People don't buy television because of the beauty of the box. They buy it for the content. So we must realize that if on the analog domain, content is the king, then it has become a super king in the digital environment.
Well, on that note, sir, I say thank you very much for coming to talk the talk with us on the program today. It's been a pleasure having you here and shedding light on this issue of digitization. Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you for the opportunity to talk about digitization. I'd like to assure the Nigerian public that the federal government is doing everything possible, that nobody will be left out come 2015. Nobody will have to throw away their television set come 2015. Everybody will have what it takes to receive digital signal.
Okay, you heard that. Come 2015, June 17, 2015, everybody will have what it takes to have digital signals. Thank you very much for joining us on this edition of The Talk. I am Bola Oyemi. We'll see you again some other time. Bye for now.